really been on this planet 50 years waiting for my 50th birthday party, and I finished this presentation this morning, so I might need to refer to some notes. But as I said earlier on, I've prepared quite a lot, and I hope that you're sitting comfortably because we're going to be here for a very long time. I have a microphone, it's my party, carry on. Now, I've known Wendy for half of my life. And I categorise my life as pre-Wendy and post-Wendy. Alternatively, happy. Okay, I see where you're coming from. The other way round. Although I'm not too sure. By the end of this, perhaps you can tell me whether I've got it right or I've got it wrong. Wendy and I celebrate our half-centuries in August and November, respectively. And I think, if anything, I've aged a lot better than her. This is the theme of tonight. Unfortunately for me and many men here, I was born 7 years too late. This is excellent and extremely accurate piece from Housekeeping Monthly of 1955 shows. Now, a number of you may have seen this. I'll try and make it a bit larger for you. Listen to him. You may have a dozen important things to tell him. But the moment of his arrival is not the time. Let him talk first. Remember, his topics of conversation are more important than yours. Thank you. Arrange his pillow and offer to take off his shoes. Speak in a low, soothing and pleasant voice. Don't ask him questions about his actions or question his judgment or integrity. Remember, he is the master of the house. And the final one here is, of course, a good wife always knows her place. Now, all right, ladies, all right. Wendy was born, we'll come back to this, by the way. Wendy was born on the 22nd of August 1962, and me on the 23rd of November. Now, here is Wendy in her punk phase, and here is me. You can see I've already mastered the art of sitting up, unlike Wendy. There are two other key things with this picture. One is it is the start of my side parting, which has been with me almost all my life. And my parents were very clever to take an interesting perspective here of having my feet first in shot, so it didn't show up my ears. Now, as well as the birth of Wendy the Beast and Andrew the Beauty, we also saw Mr. Colchester, Norwich City, win the League Cup by beating Rochdale. The death, sadly, of Marilyn Monroe, I don't know why sadly, but there we go. The Cuban Missile Crisis, the term personal computer was first coined. And on December the 22nd, the big freeze started. For those of you around at the time, you will remember there were no frost-free nights until the 5th of March 1963, and it was during this time that Wendy's parents decided to put her in a pram outside to get some air. She got some air all right, she got pneumonia at the same time. Now, also in 1962, Nelson Mandela was arrested over incitement to rebellion. Now, some of you may know that in a former life I did some work in South Africa, and Nelson Mandela was involved, and we occasionally write to each other. This is him, after he read one of my highly amusing anecdotes. And the great man celebrated his 94th birthday on Wednesday of this week. I did write to him, he's too frail to travel to Cotton, but he did send me a letter. You know where this is going then? Here's the letter, signed by Mandiba, and it reads,
Andrew. My big-eared friend, I'm sorry that I cannot be with you today to celebrate your coming of old age. They say that when a man reaches 50, his humility and wisdom blossoms. It is therefore a great shame you never ever planted the bloody seeds. Andrew, you have known Wendy for as long as I was incarcerated in prison on Robben Island. I had a small cell, no possessions, and spent most days doing hard labour. As I think of you tonight, Andrew, I believe your sentence to have been much harsher. I wish you every happiness with your incontinence devices. My fondest regards to you, Wendy, your wonderful family, and your esteemed guests. Yours, Mandiba.
Well, there you are. On the other hand, it's too kind, let's save it, there's another 3 hours. Who else, other than me, famous, was born in 1962? We had Vanessa Phelps, Sir Steve Redgrave, Jack Dee, Demi Moore, Phil Schofield, and Ralph Fiennes. Now, I think I look like Ralph Fiennes. Yeah, I think I'm as innocuous and as pleasant, perhaps, as Philip Schofield. I have the sporting prowess, the humour of Jack Dee, and I wish Wendy looked like Demi Moore. On the other hand, Wendy wishes she looked like Demi Moore, but really she looks like Vanessa Phelps. Didn't dye her hair, she'd look like this. Now, I was brought up in Hampshire. My parents tried hard to make ends meet. My first memories were of a damp council house on a sprawling estate. However, the family managed to achieve the ultimate status symbol of having 2 fridges, one in the kitchen and a spare one in the front garden. I have fond memories of my first Christmas. My parents were down on their uppers, and they bought me an empty box and told me it was an Action Man deserter. Indeed, I remember the first day I was there, we didn't have any curtains, and my father nailed up a sheet at the front window. And when I opened it that first morning and looked out, there was a German Shepherd defecating outside my window. The next morning, I pulled back the sheet and the same thing had happened, only this time he brought his Alsatian with him. Now, it's a tough upbringing. Do you know, I was so poor, I didn't sleep on my own until I was married. When I was 14, long enough to go, look, I can't do if you make it up. When I was 14, long enough to go to my local pub for the quiz. The first question was, who are you looking at? And the main prize was an alibi for a fortnight. Now, I could have gone one of 2 ways. I could have become a young hoodlum, terrorised the neighbourhood, and made nothing of my life, or I could have chosen the path I did. And Wendy is now thinking that the gang route may have well been more prevalent. But around 1969, I was very naughty. My parents are flinching now. We lived near Eastleigh Airport, now known as Southampton Airport. I was 7, my brother was 9. It was a Sunday. We asked our parents if we could go to the airport with our friends Graham and Lindsay to look at an aircraft hangar that had been bombed during the war. Our parents said no, so we said, can we go to the park? They said yes, so we went to the airport. We saw the hangar, and it was fun. It was probably my last happy memory. We started to walk home, and while the grass suddenly turned to tarmac, and yes, we were walking on the runway. Blissfully unaware, my parents were tending their front garden with all the other people in Oak Tree Road, Bedford Park, Southampton, and the 4 of us got delivered home in something resembling this. We then had this issue, the famous prisoner's dilemma. Did my brother and I keep quiet, or would one of us spill the beans? Well, my brother chose the rather foolish option of locking himself in the bathroom, which only antagonised my father more. I wouldn't say my father's a violent man, far from it, but it is only in the last 2 years that I've been able to sit down. I can say 43 years on that I am still truly sorry. Now, people often say to me, Andrew, what's the worst decision you've ever made? Now, I know what you're thinking. You're looking at me and thinking a man as intelligent and as attractive as this can't make bad decisions. We're all fallible. I mean, I'm far less fallible than you, but we are all fallible. Now, that could have been my worst decision, that disobedience. But by far my worst decision was to buy this man, my father, or suggest to my father that he actually bought one of these. Honestly, it is like giving a toddler a shotgun. regularly called with error messages that my child faces on a daily basis. And the conversation goes something like this. Just mouse over the icon, then drop down and click the option you want. What's an icon? Where to drop down to? Look, just click the picture. Right or left click? Look, right! One click or two clicks. And it's that all the time. He also has a penchant for reading out error messages to me and my brother, and it would go something like, I've got this screen and it says 430. Well, it could be an O, it could be a 0, it could be a little O or a capital O, I'm not sure. Anyway, but my father is just about to fly back over to France to see my brother, and wanted to know if he had to check in online. You know where this is going, don't you, Father? And I said, well, look, if you email me the ticket, I'll find out for you. He said, I can't find the email, but I'll scan it for you. Here's the email. You can see his email address there, bwchalk@talktalk.net, if you want to spam him. And you can see that he's created the schoolboy error of scanning in TIFF format. Because we have a 9 megabyte file. But if I click on that, which airline ticket do I see? I see this. Now, although this packet of carrots is indeed French, I don't think that's going to warrant as a proper airline ticket. But enough of me, and let's get back and move on a decade. You see, we're only now at the 1970s. I told you this was going to be long. Here we are in the 1970s. Look at this. Fantastic. All of those of you around with David Carradine, John Lloyd. You can even own your own space pen here from Rolf Harris. Now this is Wendy. Already looking for a mate early on. Here's me showing my sporting prowess at the Junior Youth Bowling Championships in Croydon. I'm 9 years old, and this is what I like to call my beige period. Something that apparently doesn't come back until you're in your 70s and on a coach trip. But I digress. I was awarded a prize for my excellence in bowling skills. It was a travel alarm clock in a leatherette case. And whilst the clock has long gone, you never lose that sweet taste of victory. I often let Joe look at, but not touch, my medals. My Junior Youth Bowling medal here, and my runners-up Boy Scout and League winner Boy Scout medal. Look and learn, son. Slightly later in the decade, Wendy was still flaunting it. And I was showing another sporting skill by catching about 3 ounces of fish. Now, as you can see in this picture, I was quite a man about town. No jeans for me. You can see I'm sporting a lovely nylon shirt, a pair of bracelets, and a sturdy belt completing my ensemble. And it was about this time I started thinking about how I should style myself for the future. I thought leather jackets were really cool, but then I saw a man wearing a leather waistcoat, which I thought was dreadfully uncool. So I very quickly realised what was really cool was leather sleeves. The 1970s were characterised by the first woman judge at the Old Bailey, the first woman allowed to run the Boston Marathon, and the first female rabbi. Go, sisters, go. Watergate, Vietnam, the state of emergency over the miners' strike, and nuclear tests. It was hot summer of 1976. You know where this is going? Where a young Billy Connolly, intensely annoyed with Rod Hole and Emu on Parkinson, came out with that immortal line. If that emu never comes anywhere near me, I break his neck and your arm. Now, this is my party, this is my microphone, this is my PA. I've paid for everything. It's my opportunity to do my only other impression that sounds something vaguely like someone else. Now, I'm an Englishman, I'm 50, I'm about £3 overweight, but you have to suspend all disbelief when I'm going to attempt to do something that is Billy Connolly. And here goes. Is it just me, or is the guy before me a bit of a prat? I like reading the obituaries in the Daily Telegraph just to check that I'm still alive. I would like to share an example with you. Here are two. This is Wing Commander Ken Mackenzie. And in the Telegraph they always print a wee subhead here, a little headline that I blanked out here. This is a Scotsman. And what is he renowned for? A battle-Britain pilot known as Mad Mac who destroyed a German fighter by ramming it mid-air. Now this is a true Scots. On the same page, we have another chap, Major Philip James, Assassinac. And what does it say on here? Soldier and teacher frowned on pupils playing strip ping pong. I think this just typifies the difference between us all. Now, I come from a country where our national emblem, God help us, is a thorny weed. Our national diet is 80% alcohol and 20% deep-fried food. In fact, we deep-fry everything 5 times just to make sure it's dead. Our national pin-up is Jeanette Cranky. And our national instrument, God help us, is surely the missing link between noise and sound. Let me just tell you a couple of things that you may not know about the pipes. The definition of a gentleman is someone who can play the bagpipes, but doesn't. The difference between bagpipes and a trampoline is that eventually you get bored jumping up and down on the trampoline. Also, you have to take your shoes off on the trampoline. I've just returned through a few days in Belfast, and I'm reminded that during the Troubles that a Scotsman in a wee kilt went into a bar. And the barman said to him, "What have you got in that bag?" And the Scotsman said, "Syntax." And the landlord said, "Thank Christ for that, I thought you brought your bloody pipes." But that's enough of me. We're now moving on to the 80s. So what happened in 1982, which was, you see one do, I'm very clever here, 1962, 72, here we go. DeLorean and Laker Airlines collapsed, we had the Falklands War. Spookily, Mexico announces it can't pay all its debts and signifies a debt crisis across Latin America. Women went to Green and Common. And the Times magazine's Man of the Year award went to a non-human, the computer. And the 1980s saw me at college becoming even more intelligent, and Wendy in France, au pairing, seeking a mate. You can see Wendy here, in one of her many hairstyles, and you can also see Wendy's parents had a decorating style all of their own as well. On the other hand, I was going through my monochrome period, in one of my first comedy stage appearances, and you can also see that I was trialling a non-parting look during this time. It lasted about 2 weeks. Of course, this is a decade that we both started work as well. I was working for Corecast here in Stowmarket, and Wendy was working for an export agency in Ipswich, selling garden machinery items, and we were destined to meet over our mutual interest in Strimmerline. And so it was, we met just before the great storms of 1987, and the heavens had truly aligned. We actually met on a blind date. I took Wendy to a dodgy restaurant in Needham Market, and then tried to play it cool. Now, Ollie and Joe, I know you both have lovely girlfriends, but look and learn. I handed her my business card at the end of the date, and told her to give me a call. After 3 days, I'd heard nothing, so I had to call her. I was to chat up lines what King Herod was to newborn babies. Now, I don't know what is more sad, me actually giving out my business card, or 25 years later still having a copy of it. Here is Wendy in yet another hairstyle in a jaunty pose, but what interests me more here is the fact that on her desk there are some spools of 4mm Strimmerline. But what did I look like at this time? Here I am. I'm pleased to say that the side parting is back there for Tom, who's training to be a dentist. This is the day after I had all 4 wisdom teeth out in the dentist's chair. It was my Marlon Brando look. Wendy thinks that it was more my Arthur Lowe look. But let's move on to the 1990s. By 1992, Dr. Roberta Bonder becomes the first woman in space. We have the nuclear accords, we have the Prince and Princess of Wales splitting up, and the Church of England admits women priests. Here is Wendy, another hairstyle. And this was during one of her periods of eating disorders. Around her neck, you can see a string of Maltesers. On the other hand, I was totally normal. head of the telegraph box. It was, though, at this time that Wendy and I decided that we should remodel ourselves. We went to a style expert, and we caused quite a stir in the village, but we both thought it was a good look. Of course, the 1990s were a very special decade to us. When I told Wendy last night what I was roughly what I was going to say, she said, well, nothing really happened in the 1990s, didn't you, Wendy? I said, yeah, other than the fact that we moved to Cotton, got married and had 2 children. Now, I would like to say after the birth Molly on the 14th of November 1993 and Joe on the 22nd of March 1996, that our hearts brim with joy, love and pride. And of course they did, but this was counterbalanced by noise, mess, worry and a cost equivalent to Bob Diamond's bonus. Now, in the 2000s I have no images of us, because most of you know what we look like. But what you've seen through our life is the rise of computing power, the rise of women's power, and the rise and fall of nuclear power. We've lived through some interesting times. The swinging 60s, the austerity in the 70s, the boom and bust of the 90s, the profligacy and retrenchment of the 2000s. We've seen one monarch, 10 prime ministers, and my side party has remained in fashion through all that time. Now, I could go on and on about how successful I've been, what a wonderful marriage I've had, and how wonderful our children are, but everything's taken a sad turn in the last couple of years. I haven't developed a drinking habit. You see, I was invited to do a dinner at a charity ball in the Lake District. Oh, I beg your pardon. I've got ahead of myself. There's Wendy and I getting married in what looks like a cave. And there is Joe on the left and Ollie on the right, drinking and eating as they normally do. But here we have a picture, which is just something to fill in while I talk to you. You see, I was invited to do an after-dinner speech. It was a black tie affair, and I said about how easy it was for the men to get ready. Because all we had to do was put on a dinner suit, white shirt, bow tie, and away you go. With women, you can't actually have anything that conflicts with another woman, and then you've got to coordinate everything anyway, with the bag, and the shoes, and something called a shrug, whatever that is. And then, of course, there's the nails, and the makeup, and the fake tan. In fact, Wendy was sprayed this week. I said sprayed, not spayed. On Wednesday, she looked like Eartha Kitt. Now, it's only been through the judicious use of Jay's fluid that I managed to return it to anything resembling the right page of the Dulux colour chart. However, at this ball I committed a cardinal sin. I mentioned how lovely the ladies looked, but I highlighted that underneath the lovely gowns were often there was various support garments that redistributed flesh around the body, pushing and prodding and poking, magic this and support that. And I finished by saying that when Mrs. Chalk removed her various support garments in our bedroom after an event like that, our bedroom resembled the lower decks of a Japanese whaling boat. The day after that, Wendy suggested we seek some marital guidance. Now, I've always thought I could have done better than Wendy, but you have to give it a shot, don't you? So along we went to our counsellor, who was an unmarried woman with a beard. And on our first counselling session, she asked Wendy to explain her concerns. Now, I know I'm not perfect. I'm pretty bloody close. But I know I'm not perfect. But she went on and on and on about being unloved and unlovable and neglect and emptiness and loneliness over the last 22 years. And even the counsellor was starting to lose the will to live. So she got up from her chair, she went round and she hugged Wendy, and Wendy stopped her rant. And in that hugging position, the counsellor looked at me and said, look, Andrew, this is what your wife needs 3 times a week. Do you think you can manage that? And I said, well, look, I can bring her here Mondays and Wednesdays. On Fridays I play golf. Now, the counsellor said, for your second session, and I thought, oh, here we go, she's going to turn the tables, I'm going to be able to say something. But oh no. She said, on your second session, I want you to independently write down 5 things that you either like or preferably you love about each other. And keep it secret and bring it here next time. Well, I don't know about you chaps, but eating, drinking, sleeping, looking at other women, things like that, get in the way of chores like that, don't they? But I knew that Wendy would have done a really good job. And when I arrived in the car park late for my second appointment, I rummaged around in the glove compartment and I found an old Tesco's receipt. And I wrote my 5 on there, my list of 5 things, and I was very pleased with my list. And we went in and we handed our list to the bearded woman, and she read Wendy's list out first. I have Wendy's list here. I told you she would take some time. This is Wendy's list. And it says, excellent father and role model to our boys. Yeah, you're about right there. Loyal, supportive and faithful. Loyal, supportive and faithful. You're right, on 2 of those at least. Generous to a fault. Well, I took you off the shelf, didn't I? Always makes me laugh. Well, of course, I'm intensely amusing. And extremely hardworking and a great provider for the family. Now, I said to the counsellor, can I have my list back a moment? She said, no, 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 no. We need to spread yours out, Andrew. And I have my list here as well. So small I can't find it. Here's my list. Makes lovely cakes and biscuits. Quite pretty. Almost financially independent. Has own hair and teeth. And my 5th one was moderately acceptable levels of personal hygiene. Now, I think my list was quite good. I'm a marketing man. I felt my list worked on a different level for Wendy's. Wendy thought it worked on no level at all, and the bearded woman took sides with Wendy. But what did I learn from this experience? Because we have to have learning outcomes, don't we, Richard? Absolutely. Thank you. Now, I offer this advice free of charge. This is where we get into the educational phase of what I'm going to say. For those of you who have businesses, it's tax deductible. Now, this is going to be useful to anyone assembled here, whether you're in the excitement of a new relationship or caught up in the monotonous drudgery of 22 years of marriage or more. Here is a simple marriage logic grid. And we have here me and Wendy, and whether there's some outcomes. Now, if Wendy is right, and I'm right over something, Wendy's right. Now, obviously, if Wendy's right and I'm wrong, Wendy's right. However, if Wendy's wrong and I'm right, Wendy's still right. And if we're both wrong, Andrew's wrong. Now, if you're foolish enough to disagree with a woman, this could result in an argument. Now, this simple 2D graph here shows Wendy's reaction over time. When we first start, she's out of the blocks like Usain Bolt. But ultimately, there follows a period where she's vented her spleen and really can't get any more annoyed with me. If you really push her, she goes silent. Now, chaps, it's always worth going that extra mile. Continue the push until you get the silent treatment, because it's by far and away the best form. So, what keeps us together? I hear you say.
What keeps you together?
Thank you. We have a joint mortgage. We have a joint bank account, and we have 2 children that we believe are ours. But ignoring these sort of incidental items, what really keeps us together? Now, although when I started to speak to you what seems like 5 hours ago, I said what a shame I wasn't around in 1955. Actually, I would not like to be seeking a partner now, although I may have to after this, because what you have now is you have all these online dating things. I'm particularly perturbed by the Match.com with the man with the small guitar. If I was there and someone started singing me over the other side of the platform, I think I'd warn him that I had pepper spray. And on the eHarmony, is it just me, or does the woman seem more interested in the bloke? but anyway, what happens with these dating sites, I'm reliably informed, is that they take your interests and your likes, and they use databases and algorithms, and they actually match you perfectly. And that would be absolutely no good for Wendy and I, because we're compatibly incompatible. Now, I know what you're thinking here. Andrew's right, because he's funny, clever and attractive, and Wendy's none of those. But let me explain more. Here we have a compatibly incompatible graph and enjoyment on the right hand side. Those of you who got some cheese, and I think I've got some friends here. I think Mr. Palmer is certainly one who doesn't like stinky cheese. Wendy likes cheese. The stinkier, the runnier, the smellier and the mouldier, the better. Andrew no like cheese. In fact, we are a case of this. Hey, waited 50 years for that, didn't you? Wendy loves coffee. I haven't drunk coffee since the Eastleigh airport event. In fact, Wendy's love of coffee has recently moved on to a entirely different level. Now, does anyone other than my lovely brother-in-law and his family know this coffee?
Yes.
Yeah, thank you. This might give you a bit of a clue. Wendy is holding an empty toilet roll. It's nothing to do with a coffee enema. It's far, far worse than that. This Kopi Luwak coffee, if that's the pronunciation, has been lovely processed by a civet. It says here that civet coffee is made from coffee beans which have been eaten and passed through the digestive tract of an Asian palm civet. Right at the bottom it says, after chewing the fruity exterior, the civet swallowed the bean whole and the enzymes within the stomach massage the beans, smoothing off the harsh edges while passing through the system undigested. It is believed these enzymes add to the flavour by breaking down the residual bitterness. The beans are defecated by the civets and then washed hygienically and thoroughly before only being given a light roast so as to not destroy the coffee's complex flavours. There's a couple of issues I have there. One is washing hygienically. I'm not too sure what washing unhygienically is. And the other one is coffee's complex flavours. I think I can define that in a 4-letter word beginning with S and ending in T. And of course this coffee is the most expensive coffee known to man. It's obviously sold by the gram. It's more expensive than cocaine. Wendy likes heat. I'm not too keen on heat. Wendy sets our central heating system at an interesting level. And what I've done here is I've actually put in the melting points of various substances. From chocolate through to iron, which you can see is around about 1500 degrees Celsius. Obviously water boils at 100 degrees, we all know that, but what we don't know is that Wendy sets our thermostat about here. In fact, when I get home from work, I can often see our Rayburn in the kitchen glowing, 700 weights of almost molten metal, and Wendy has been solely responsible for the global warming that has led to the weather patterns we've had this summer. Wendy likes literature. I'm more of a sort of screw-fix direct type of guy. But there's more. I love work. Work is in fact my mistress, and Wendy can take it or leave it. Work is not her mister. I like, as Mr. Waghorn likes, we like classic rock music. Wendy's not too keen on that. But Howard and I like people like the Scorpions. Wendy likes Michael Bublé. And I'm with my father on this. You're not singing unless you can see the veins standing out on your neck. And this guy is a talker. He's not a singer. Wendy loves sleep. She absolutely adores sleep. I can take it or leave it. I always think Wendy's a bit like a koala. Let's look at the reasons why. Is it because she's cuddly, sleeps a lot and is lovable? Well, I think it's more the fact that she's clingy, furry, lives off one food group, sleeps 20 over 24 hours, and has gummy eyes. Now, Wendy loves hats. I have a problem with hats. When I get to a certain height, and I'm talking about height here, not hats, this isn't Prince Charles pronouncing hat. When I get to a certain height, I feel uncomfortable and I get a desire to jump off. And if you speak to vertigo sufferers, that's what they want to do. They want to get down quickly. I have a similar thing with hats. Whenever I see someone wearing a hat that serves no functional purpose, or even worse, as an on-straight, I have a desire to knock it off their head. It's known as hat Tourette's. Except for James Leonard Martin, who's a rather wonderful chap. I have a particular issue with the Breton hat. A baseball cap on the skew, or a hat that serves no function or purpose. Now, We have different views on how we should have celebrated our coming of age. Wendy said, let's ask Gary from As You Like It Marquees, fantastic marquee man. Wickham Skeet, if you want to contact him. Marquee in our garden. And we get Ollie and Joe to do some music. We could spend all day cooking, borrowing crockery and furniture from everyone we know, and then spend all evening serving food and washing up. I said, that sounds like a good plan. But how we ended up here? Well, here's another graph. This is our party plan graph. Your enjoyment on the vertical axis, and the cost along the bottom. I think we have a straight line correlation between cost and enjoyment. If I didn't spend any money, you'd have a whale of a time. Wendy had a different view. Now, of course, the clever amongst you realise there's an optimal point here where everything meets. You all have a mild degree of enjoyment, and we have a cost that is not equivalent to the national debt of Greece. But of course, we ended up here. So, and for those of you clever will realise there's a gap here, so we're nearing the end. So what does keep us together? Well, I've analysed this in depth. And I think it boils down to the 5 C's. And as a consultant, I need models, and 5 C's sounds a good one. This is quite a simple one. It is our shared pathological hatred of cats, cruises, coach trips, camping, and clitoris. Now, if that boy had parted his hair on the side, he might have made something. In fact, we went camping once. It was in France with the boys when they were very young. It was not good. Wendy was climbing over a fence and I decided to give her a helpful push. She broke her hip. And I sat in the tent, full of remorse, while I watched Wendy struggle to cook the dinner before I took away the leave. And finally, ladies and gentlemen, here's a graph that shows my love for Wendy. When I'm away in a hotel in Leeds eating a dinner on my own, my mind wanders back to my wife. Her smile, the way she strokes her hair, her soft skin, her soothing voice. And then I realise that really my love for her increases the further away I am from her. And you all have the same. I'm not the only one. You all think it's wonderful when you're away and how wonderful it would be when you're back. But when you get back, you don't get any of this, do you? You don't get anyone arranging the pillow, sorting everything out. Now, you've indulged me, and I thank you, of course. And all of what I've said has been complete and utter tosh. But let's be serious for a moment, and here is me with a serious face. I do have to say some serious things. I have to say thank you very much indeed for everyone who's come here tonight. Some from very far-flung places like France, Yorkshire, Gloucestershire and Norfolk. I'd like to say special thanks to my colleague Juliet for making a splendid job of the cake, and you'll be able to have some of that in I of course would like to say thank you to my parents for all their love and support over the last 50 years, and I'm sorry about Eastleigh Airport. and of course Hannah and Peter as well, who are my surrogate parents, being so close, who are absolutely stunning at a combined age of about 450. My 2 children, of course, Ollie, who you're just about to hear play, has managed to secure a place, assuming he gets 2 E's, at Birmingham Conservatoire to study jazz piano. He got one of only 2 places at probably the top conservatoire and ended up getting a scholarship as well. So fantastic. And Joey, who's just gone through his GCSEs and has a sporting prowess that I would have loved to have achieved, gone unbeaten for 5 seasons, top goal scorer for 2 seasons, and in his last season as captain for his team, lifting silverware for his club for the first time. And qualified referee and a jolly good all-round egg. So thank you, and thank you to Barry as well for the support he's given at the club. And then of course there's Wendy, and she has an incredible burden to bear. She has to look after me. And you only see me now and again, so you're very, very lucky. Wendy sees me on a daily basis. She, you know, we often listen to good old Steve Wright's Sunday love song sometimes on a Sunday. You know, these people phone in and sort of say, you know, we've had our ups and downs. Well, actually, we've never had any downs. We've been very, very fortunate. We've been blessed with good health. We've been blessed with good jobs, lovely children, lovely place in the world to live, and a supportive family. So it has always been on the ups. And she's been an absolute rock for me. We set up my business 5 years ago, and she worked for that. She managed to, we were fortunate enough that she could take some time off when the children were born, but eventually her brain turned to fudge. So she thought, all right, I'll do an OU degree. So she did that, and of course those of you who know her well will know that she qualified as a hypnotherapist about 18 months ago, and her business has gone from strength to strength. So she really is, you know, my soulmate, my friend, my lovely wife, and I take back all the rude things I said about her. She is organised tonight from start to finish, and my thanks for that. And I look forward to the next, well, perhaps not 50s, I think I might be pushing it, but let's look forward to the next.
You're still sleeping outside tonight.
Tell me something different. But can I just say thank you very much for coming, and thank you very much to my lovely wife. Thank you. Ollie's just going to play some piano for us now, so we're just going to move all this around and set this down. He's going to have a tinkle of the ivories, and if you want to go and get some more drinks and everything, Wendy's going to make some coffee for those people who want it, and we are going to have some cake cutting after Ollie's done some tinkling, if you're excuse the expression. Thank you.